Hello, Spellslingers. Jackson here, and all by myself today because I'm going to show y'all how to build and brew a Sorcery Contested Realm deck, specifically within the tabletop simulator environment, but a lot of the advice here will carry y'all over to paper versions. So let's dive right into it. I'm going to zoom out a little bit, and I'm going to grab some of the cards from the Fire Precon. So let's pull those out here, set her there, and her lands here. Then I'm also going to open the card pool by changing the state to 2. I'm going to search the card pool. I'm going to grab the fire deck. This has all the cards that they've given us for the fire element and the lands as well. I guess I'll grab the relics as well. Might want to throw a relic or 2 in here, but I'm only doing 1 element for fire, and this is all I'm going to need. So first thing I'll do is drag her over and then make sure she's alone. Hover it, Control C or Command C if you're on Mac to copy it. Then I'm going to paste another one here so I don't have to take the one from the precon. I'm going to put the avatar fire right at the top. And actually, now that I'm looking, I don't know that the avatar fire is the avatar I want to play. I'm more interested in the sorcerer. So I'm going to grab the pile of avatars with her on top again. Search inside of it. Take sorcerer out, copy and paste them to make another one. Then I'm going to drag the sorcerer, the original one, back into that stack and drop it back in the card pool. Cool. And if you're wondering how I switched to this camera view really quickly, it's because I have positioned my camera here manually, and then I hit Control 1 to save a camera position, and Shift 1 to call back to that saved position. This works with Control 2, 3, maybe all the way up to 9, I don't know. I've only really used 2. So Shift 1 is this way, Shift 2 rotates it this way, which you'll see utilized in my gameplay videos. Alright, that's not what we need to know for now though. For now, we need to know how to build a deck, especially within the TC or the TTS environment, right? The tabletop simulator environment. It's not completely intuitive, but once you have watched this video, you're going to have a great idea of what to do and how to do it, and should be able to get into this process relatively quickly after the video. I'm going to put the lands down here and put her lands down here. I usually do the land second. It doesn't matter as much with a single element, but if you're doing 2 element deck, you would want to build the deck and then see, okay, which element threshold am I using more? Like if I was wind fire, but most of my spells have the wind threshold, or my high mana cost spells have triple wind, double wind threshold, then you're probably going to want more wind producing lands in the deck. And so you might have to play around with that ratio a little bit, but for this video we're just doing a single color deck because that's what I'm comfortable and confident in. So we've got sorcerer, we've got our stacks of cards that we might add, and I'm gonna keep them kind of spread out a little bit. It's not too big a deal where you put them. I just like to keep the middle of the board clean and clear because this is where I'm going to lay my cards as I'm building the deck, so that's pretty important to me. So I'm going to drag the lands over here and over here, just so they're not in the way as I build. Okay, there's a couple ways you could build. Most of my expertise comes from Magic the Gathering and building decks in that format for several years now. And a lot of that kind of knowledge carries over to Sorcery, so it has been pretty successful for me most of the time. I've played another mono fire deck, which means I'm just playing fire as an element. That's what I mean by mono. And it's all about slinging magics. So I'm playing lots of fireballs. I'm playing minor explosions and flash fires, which is actually an aura, not a magic, so it works a little differently. But that deck is, it's spell slinging after our name. We're trying to throw magics, not minions as much, just magic. Throw magic around like a absolute maniac slinging spells. And it's fun, and sometimes it wins games, but I think it's not as strong as a more well-rounded fire deck probably can be. So this deck is going to be built with the strategy in mind that I am going to be playing things like Firebolt, and perhaps Fireball, probably Flashfire. I think Flashfire is really good, really solid. So I'm going to be playing some of these magics, but I'm also going to fill the deck with just good creatures, good minions that are strong, hard to deal with, hit hard, and can hopefully help me close the game out. Because the thing about magics is they're a one-time use. You know, Major Explosion might look really good on paper, and you know it is, but it's 7 mana, which is a lot, and it's a one-time use. So you know, you get some value out of it, and if you've played into it really well and you've had it in your hand for a while, you might even wipe the board with it and kill all the minions. That's fantastic. It really is. I'm not gonna knock you for doing that. I think, you know, sometimes it might be the single best spell you could play. However, it does the thing one time, right? I mean, you might draw more, but it does the thing one time. Something like the Bull Demons of Adum can continue to get value. So once they hit the board, if they're not killed, you might get 4 turns with it. That's 4 turns with something that can move 2 tiles, has haste, so it moves when it comes in, and Iron Skin, so it's even harder to deal with. Now, I don't think this one is particularly good, but you see what I mean, where minions can kind of amass value throughout the game, where the sorceries are a one-shot, one-time thing. So it's basically less card advantage. If you have several creatures on the board that are hitting every turn compared to just one fireball, you're getting more value out of the creatures. So I think that's the direction I'm going to build in. And the reason I'm telling you all this is because coming up with the strategy before you get into the deck building can be really useful. Sometimes you can build a deck just by looking at the cards you want to play, maybe grabbing a couple of them that you really like, and kind of using that as a foundation for the rest of the deck. Sometimes that means you're grabbing a 7 mana spell. Maybe the Ancient Dragon is what you want to play. I mean, that's the reason you're building the deck. That's awesome. That's really cool. Play as many of these as you can. For the Ancient Dragon, it's going to be 2 because it's an elite, which is great. So you can have 2 of them, and they're 7 mana. So more than 2 might get a little weird. You might start drawing them in your opening hand, and they'll be a dead card for at least 7 turns. So that's not great. But if that's what I want to build around, I can build the rest of the deck kind of underneath it. Like I probably won't play anything more expensive than the dragon, but I'll fill the deck with good things that are cheaper than the dragon, from, you know, 0 to even 1 mana cost, all the way to 6 perhaps, and use the dragon as kind of my game ender, my finisher card. That could definitely work. That's one way to build, is from like the top down, if you will. Another way to build is to look at something like Will of the Wisp, which is 1 mana, and say, okay, well, I love Will of the Wisp. It does an amazing thing. I can play it in the void, hit someone's land, and then once it's done hitting the land, it teleports back to the void. That's really good value. It's going to stick around for most of the game and be a slow burn kind of thing. So if that was the case, I could play all of the Will of the Wisps that I want, and then as many cards that are like them as I can, as I continue to kind of climb the mana curve, right? Because I start with 1 in this situation, and I find as many 1-drops as I like that play well in this kind of strategy. Then I find the 2 mana spells, the 3 mana spells, the 4 mana spells, the 5 mana spells, and maybe farther, but maybe I don't want to play anything more than 5 mana. Maybe I want to play cheap spells so that I can end the game early and I'm more likely to cast 2 spells a turn. Kind of things of that nature. This is the stuff you want to think about before you really start throwing your cards on the table. And it can be very beneficial in that sense. So I think it's always wise to have a clear-cut idea of the kind of strategy you want to play before you dive in. For this deck, I want to play some big creatures that hit hard and are hard to deal with. That's kind of my strategy. I'm going to use spells like magic stuff to enhance the creatures, but the most valuable thing that I'm going to be doing in this deck is playing stuff like the Chimera. The Carcabesh Chimera is a 6 mana, 4 power creature, which seems a little weak at first. It's 6 mana, but it's only 4 power. But if we read what it does, we start to get into the craziness of the card. It has lethal when fighting from behind. So it's got this positional strategy element to it, which is really sweet. and it's got iron skin when fighting sideways. So when fighting sideways, as in horizontally across the board, you are twice as hard to kill. It takes 8 power to kill it now, which is pretty insane. And then it has +2 power when fighting from the front, which is just a way to make it a 6 power creature when you move forward to attack. Okay, so what it's talking about, this positional thing, it's talking about the way in which you have approached the combat. Okay, it's not, if you're on the same tile, it does something different. We'll read that in a second. But what's really important for the first 3 abilities is that the way in which you have moved into the tile to attack is how you decide, was it sideways, in front, or behind. So if my sorcerer is facing this way, and I attack him this way, I've attacked him from the front. Okay? If I've attacked him this way, it's from the side. And if he's here, and I've attacked him this way, it's from the back. So that's how you decide where you're getting these values from. Or these abilities, rather. Okay? And if you're on the same tile, let's read what it does. If this chimera and the enemy started combat on the same tile, all of the above applies. So if you get on the same tile with them and stick around, now you're just insane. You're lethal, you have iron skin, and you're a 6 power creature now. I mean, what more could you ask for? It's amazing. The art is wicked. I am building the deck to play this card. Okay, so I'm going to play cards like it. I have copied it, and then I'm going to paste 2 of them here. I'm pasting them on the right side of the board because it's 6 mana. This is closer to my highest mana cost spell that I'm going to play probably. Maybe I go farther than that. I'm already committing to playing some 6 mana spell, so going a little bit farther than that is within my game plan potentially, but we'll see if I feel that it's necessary. And if it is, I'll put the 7 mana and above cards on this side of the board. Okay, so let's go back into the deck. The Chimera is an elite, so I'm only playing 2. So I'm going to want some cards that feel just as powerful, perhaps. Some other minions that I could put in the 6 or 5 mana slot that are, you know, as strong as the Chimera, at least in some sense, right? So let's look at what else we've got. Let's check out the Cyclops. I don't really know this one very well. But the Cyclops does not deal damage when being attacked or blocking, but it deals twice its power of damage when attacking. Okay, that's interesting. It hits for 6 when it attacks. It dies pretty easy though. I mean, a 3 power creature kills this without even dying. I'm not into it. Cool art, but I'm not into it. Let's check out the Basilisk at 4 mana. Minions on the site directly in front of this Basilisk are petrified. It's interesting. It's not like the Chimera though. It's not very big. It doesn't hit very hard. I might come back to it later if I decide I want that utility. For now, let's ditch it. I've seen the Cerberus. I'm not big on the Cerberus either. It has to stay on the site where it was summoned unless you kind of cheat that with other cards. I don't want something I have to necessarily play around. I'd rather just have a generically strong card. When it hits the field, it's good with no other questions asked. So let's see what else we got. Got a Maze Minotaur at 4 mana for 3 power with Iron Skin, and nearby enemy minions can only move to sites near this Minotaur. That's interesting. You're luring, however you say it, nearby enemies and nearby enemy minions toward the Minotaur. Maybe, yeah. I mean, it forces some positional stuff, which I think could be good. It's an elite. Let's play 2 of them. Just to have something on the board right now. I might cut it later. Okay, what else have we have? The Bane Spider's interesting. When you summon it, it kills another minion on the location that it's summoned. It's interesting. I don't know. I'm not too huge on it. Instead, how about we find space for the Ancient Dragon? I think the Ancient Dragon is sweet. It hits hard. It has a little bit of utility with range and splash damage. And I'm already committing to getting into the higher manas. So a 7 mana spell is okay. It's also nice because both of these are elite. So I'm only playing 2. Now I have 4 cards that kind of fill that top end big beater criteria, which is important because now I'm more likely to see one of these every game, which is a good place to be, I think. There's not too many other giant creatures that I'm interested in. I already have 4 spells above 6 mana. So I think I'm good. We will check the precon because it does have other cards. So I'm just, going over here to search these, see if there's anything in here that feels like it would be really worthwhile. The Sandworm is interesting. It's 4 mana, 5 power, so you get more power than you paid for. Burrowing Firebound. Firebound's a little awkward. I really want to be aggressive. I want to push into their area. Infernal Legion is pretty sweet. Fire immunity and splash damage, so it hits everything on the tile when it attacks. And at the end of your turn, it deals 1 damage on nearby sites. So it burns your opponent down once it comes out. I'm a pretty big fan of that. Maybe I can get away with some more 6 mana spells. You know what? We're going to go for it. It's an elite as well, so I'm only running 2. That puts me to 6 spells above 6 mana. I don't think I want to go above that. We start getting into a zone where I'm probably going to be drawing cards I'm not going to play most of the game in my opening hands. If I have too many spells that are very expensive. So it's time to move down in the mana cost. Okay, so this is my top end. I'm playing expensive cards, so I know I'm going to want a way to make these a little bit cheaper. It's easy include, it's almost always right, and it's really good. It's Mix Ignis. Fire spells cost by the bear, cost 1 less to cast, and require no mana or fire threshold. Just really good. If I get it out on my guy early, everything for the rest of the game is pretty much going to be cheaper. That means I'm playing the 6 mana creature on turn 5, or if I get both even earlier. It's just really good. I'm not super interested in the rest of these. I've gone through most of them. I'm not huge on a lot of them. I don't want to play anything super expensive either, so I'm going to back out of the relics. I'd rather play the fire cards anyway. That's what we're here for, really. So let's go back. If I'm playing big creatures, I'm going to want some stuff early that is just good value, probably. There's all kinds of options. I think the Sacred Scarabs is pretty cool. It's damage. It explodes into splash damage when it dies. It comes down on turn 2 usually, which is early. I think that's pretty good. I'm also a big fan of the Nomads. The Nomads are immune to fire, so I can cast my fire spells over the top of them without having to worry about killing my own creature, and they have +1 movement, so I can kind of get some pretty amazing value out of moving them around as well. I'll put my 2 mana spell here and maybe make a little bit more room for the 3, 5, and 1 mana stuff. Okay, I am interested in some spells. I think Firebolts is good. You can hit something for 3 sometimes, or hit 3 things for 1, or any kind of combination, which is pretty sweet. Is there anything else I'm super interested in? I think I do play the Will-O-Wisp, because just the chip damage throughout the game is really nice. It's an exceptional, so I'm going to play 3. Oh, and something I forgot. I like to use the life counter that they give you to keep track of how many cards I'm playing, how many cards I've added to the deck. So I know 2, 4, 6, 8. So let's add 8. 4, another 4. Go to 12, another 3, 15, another 2, 17. So now I know I have 17 cards in my deck, so I can keep track as I build. Which is really useful so that I don't end up putting too many or too few in the deck and then have to adjust later. So that's pretty nice. Let's talk about some spells. There's some good spells I could be playing, as well as some good creatures. I think the Rattlesnakes are pretty solid. I am going to play the Rattlesnakes. I think these are a good card. Whoops, I accidentally pasted an extra one. I gotta find another Rattlesnake now. Or I will just Control Z. Oh, they're still gone. Maybe one more time, one more time, one more time. There they are. Okay, what was I at? I gotta recount. But at least my Rattlesnake is still here. Alright, so I'm gonna copy that, paste it. Copy, whoops, copy this again, paste that. Copy the Will-O-Wisp, paste it here, and then drag the originals back so I don't lose them. Alright, that's 8, 10, 14. 17, right? Because I'm playing 3 of these. Wait, is that right? 2, 4, 6, 8, 12, 15, 17 total. Okay, and then... Whoops, did it again. These are ordinary, so I'm going to play all 4. And I'm going to put those right here, just so I know, like, here are my 2 mana spells, and how many am I playing at each mana cost. So I'm up to 19. I know of a cool combo that other people have done, so I'm going to play it, because I think it's sweet. When you play rattlesnakes, they have lethal. So it's 1 power creature with lethal. It also has burrowing, which is nice. You can hide it under a site to protect from big attackers. But spin attack is a wild combo with the rattlesnakes. Let's say you've got rattlesnakes right here, and maybe it's even burrowed, right? You can unburrow it on that turn, and if you have enemy creatures around you, you cast spin attack on your rattlesnakes. So it spins, dealing lethal damage to every site nearby you, any enemies nearby you on the site. So every site but your own that you're standing on. So if it was here, it would be all of these, right? This one, this one, this one, this one, and this one. And because the rattlesnakes has lethal, it does lethal damage in a circle. So you kill everything around you that's not in your sight that's an enemy. So it won't even hit your own creatures. It's insane. We're playing it. I'm going to drag the original back and make 3 copies. I don't want to do 4 of this one because it might be dead in my hand sometimes if my board's not in a good position. But I do want to see it probably once every game, so I'm going to play 3, even though I could play 4. Okay, so I've started to get some 2 mana stuff, some 3 mana stuff. I'd like to fill out the 3 mana spot a little more, so let's see, what other good 3 mana creatures do I have? A 3 mana 3 power with haste seems pretty decent, just like generically good. Sandstorm is pretty interesting too. Maybe if I'm playing against like an earth deck that's making a bunch of creatures with their sights and playing a bunch of creatures, this could help me kind of stifle the amount of damage I'm taking from them. It's interesting, I think about it. I don't know, minor explosion's pretty good. I like to be able to just kind of remove other people's creatures. Should I, fall behind on the board state? I'm going to play a minor explosion. I'm going to play all 4 because it seems like a good removal spell. I can cast it 2 sites away from my spellcaster, so I can use it to kill stuff on their board without necessarily hitting mine. Feels like pretty good play to do. And then let's look around. I think Disintegrate might be worth running just because relics are really good, and it does deal 3 damage per relic destroyed to the bearer. So I'm gonna run 2. It might be dead sometimes, but I'd rather have it in the deck than get caught without it and get blown out by some relics. So let's play 2 Disintegrate. That's interesting. Can be summoned anywhere without water, but they must enter burrowed. Pretty interesting. Just thinking about other stuff that would make my strategy work. I am going to be hurting for card draw sometimes. Wayfaring Pilgrim sometimes replaces itself. It's not amazing though. The red card draw, the best one is Pact with the Devil, but I'm not playing a lot of spellcasters, so maybe it's not worth it to lose half my life to draw 3. So I don't know that I want to play that one either. So maybe I just want every spell I play to have incredible value so that it doesn't matter that I'm not drawing that many extra cards. And if it comes to value, I think Flashfire is one of the best. You could play 3, and I'm going to, so let's tick up to 3. It's a aura. You can conjure it near your spellcaster. It deals 4 splash damage wherever it traverses. So as soon as it hits play, it does 4 to that site in splash. And then at the start of your turn, you can move it to anywhere that hasn't already been touched by it. So you can kind of corner people with it. It's really quite interesting. And in the gameplay that I've seen and in my own experience, it can be pretty strong. So I'm going to play it. Okay, I'm not too interested in anything else here at the moment. So maybe the Dragonets, they're pretty good. Oh, the Vile Imp seems good. Okay, let's fill up the 2 mana slot a little bit more with 4 Vile Imps. These are going to deal 2 damage to a nearby target when they come in, which is kind of like what my lands are doing. So I'm going to be throwing a lot of damage around for free using my lands and the Vile Imp. And it sticks around with the 2 power body too, so that's more damage or a blocker potentially, which I'm really into. Let's think. Heat Ray is interesting. I think Minor Explosion is just going to be my better removal spell in this kind of a deck. The Clamor Harpies is pretty cool. Carry a weaker minion from anywhere in the realm to their site. And then if it's an enemy, it attacks it. I think this is pretty great value. Like sometimes you carry your own minion and get in for an attack. Sometimes you can use it to kill an enemy minion. So let's play all 3. I think that's a good one. If 4 mana is going to be a pretty solid mid-game opportunity for me to play some spells with some utility, some spells that maybe even 2 for 1. I'm interested in a Fireball, but first I'm going to go back to this deck. I'm going to add Incinerate and an Immolation. Immolation is a unique. I can only play 1. It does 7 damage to an Avatar minion in a cardinal direction for my spellcaster. I mean, that's just a really powerful spell. I'm always going to like to see that in my hand, so we're playing it. And then, where is Incinerate? Do I want to play Incinerate? So let's grab it and read it real quick once I find it. Is it not in this one? Maybe, oh, it's right here, okay. I'll make an extra copy and load it. It's 5 mana, deal 5 splash damage on a site near your spellcaster or your dragon. At first I thought it was targeted, like deal 5 damage to 1 creature, or probably an avatar. I say creature, I mean minion, sorry guys. But because it's splash damage, it's even better. I mean, that's pretty interesting. Let's play 3. So now I have room for 2 other cards. What do I want? If I look at the layout of the deck, I can kind of see, okay, so where am I playing the most of my spells? I'm playing the most of my spells at 3, 4, and 2 mana. It looks like 2 mana is going to have the highest density of spells, because there's 12 here. That's a pretty good place, so I like being able to do stuff in the early game. And then the longer the game goes on, the more likely I am to draw some of these other spells, and potentially also have the mana for it, which is nice. Sorcerer also lets me start with 4 in my hand, so I can afford to draw off my Atlas more often in the early game, which helps me get those land drops to make sure I do get to my 6 and 7 mana pretty often. Fireball's interesting. The Sandworm's interesting. I'm playing a fair amount of creatures already. I think I might want 2 more just good creatures, so maybe at the 3 or 4 mana spot, so that I'm making sure to put pressure on before the end game when my big spells come down, and probably can handle the game mostly on their own from there. Okay, how about, which deck was I just in? Whoops. I think I was in this one. I'm gonna pull the Avatar back out to put her on top. Go back into this one. I like the 3 mana 3 power with haste. I think that's very interesting. They are ordinary, but I'm only going to play 2. It's either that or Pact with the Devil. Pact with the Devil is an elite. You know what? Whoops. I think card draw is just super good, even if you're paying half your life for it sometimes. So I'm going to try this. It might not work out in the long run. Like I might find that I never really want to sacrifice or lose half my life. And I'm not playing any spellcasters, so I'm not going to be able to do the sacrifice of spellcaster to draw 3. I'm going to almost always have to lose half my life. But, you know, drawing 3 cards, especially if your opponent has no cards in hand, is probably still good enough to get you there to the W. So I'm going to try it. Sometimes you try things and they don't work out the way you want them to, and so you can go back in, remove them, and then you have a slot for some other cards, right? So you could try something else. So that's not the worst, you know. Deck building is a iterative, some word like that. It's an iterative process, so you're not going to necessarily nail it first try. Okay, let's do the lands now. So for the lands, what I've been doing is I take them from the precon for the single element deck. I just copy and paste it because I'm going to want almost every one of these. The one thing that's different, I'm going to zoom backward a little bit. The one thing that's different is that the precons are only playing 16 lands. You need 20, so we are going to add 4 more. But one of the ways we can get to that number is the precons play 3 of each, like ordinary site for the element. So 3 arid deserts, 3 remotes, and 3 reds. You could play up to 4. So we're going to copy and paste 1 of each of these. Get the remote. Paste the remote. Get the red. Copy it. Paste the red. So now I've already gotten to 19 lands in my atlas. Let's look at what's in here. Vesuvius is great. River Flame is pretty great. Stonehenge, I don't care about. Well, I am playing Pact with Devil. Maybe sometimes it's good enough. I think I'll leave it in. Yeah, why not? It's exceptional. I'm going to leave it in. All of my deserts ping a nearby thing for 1, either a minion or a site. So that's free damage when I get close to my enemy's territory. It's really good. Shifting Sands is also really good. I think I really want a 3rd Shifting Sands because this gives creatures summon their haste, which is just fantastic if I drop one of my big creatures on that land the turn I play it. That's a haste Chimera or Legion or Dragon. I mean, that's way better than a dragon that you have to wait a turn for. So I'm going to play as many of the Shifting Sands as I can. I'm going to put the precon spells back in the precon. I'm going to close it. And now I have a deck here. This is the entire deck. So I've added 2 Pact with the Devils, so that should put me to 40. I'm going to go in and count real quick just to make sure, but you can play more than 40, just not less than, so good to know. Whoa, I'm way over 40, aren't I? What did I do? I did something. Okay, I'm going to figure this out real quick. Okay, I am quite a bit over 40. I got carried away. What are some things I might want to cut? I might want to cut the Rimland Nomads. I don't care that much about the Nomads. I'm not playing that many big splashy fire spells. So I've got to find room for 6 cards, which means cutting 2 more. Maybe it's the Pact. It's a tough call. Yeah, I'll cut the Pact. So, you know, this happens sometimes. Sometimes you can't play everything you want. Or you could, but I really like to stay at 40 because it just... I like having the smallest deck I can. It means I'm going to see these cards pretty consistently. The higher the number, the more inconsistent your draws are going to be, because you're going to be seeing all kinds of different spells every game. So let's do it that way. Put the lands back. Now we get to the point where you're saving a deck. So how do we do that? We grab our sorcerer. I'll leave them over here actually for now. I'm going to move my lands out of the way as well because I want to grab those separately. I'm going to left click and drag to make a box. Once I've made that box, I'm going to hit the key G as in grapes. And it groups all of those spells. So now I can see I do in fact have 40, which is nice to know. Then I have my lands, and then I have my sorcerer. Now the way I like to do it, because I like the deck boxes, is I copy the deck box from the precon. I usually use the avatar that represents the element that I'm playing. I paste it. I take everything out of it because it's excess now, and I delete it. And then I go in and I unlock it because it's locked by default. So unlock it and then close it because it is locked in both open and closed states, so that it won't move around. But I want to be able to move it around. So I've unlocked it. I'm going to change the color tint to be, let's do purple this time. Maybe a little darker. So now it's tinted purple. Then I'm going to open it, and I have to tint it again because it's kind of a different object when it's open. Do the purple again. You can just click the most recent used color. It should show up in your color swatches here so that it matches the closed state. Just like that. I'm going to open it. I'm going to put it on here. Put my camera up. Then I'm going to put my sorcerer on top of my deck. I'm going to put my lands inside. And I'm going to put my sorcerer and spells inside. And then I'm going to close it. Now I have a deck put together in a box. So I'm going to right click it and save object. And I'm calling it Big Red V2 because I believe I already have one called Big Red. So V2 just because, is that a V? Wow, it looks like a U. Just so it doesn't overlap with the other Big Red, just in case. So now I have Big Red saved. Awesome. Delete it. Right? Make sure you've saved it. And maybe don't delete it until you do this next step. But I've deleted mine to prove that this is how it works. So I go to Objects. This only works if you are promoted or the host of the game. So if you're in someone else's game and you need to access your custom deck, you need them to promote you. So ask them to do that. They do that by clicking your name, and then they'll get a drop down. And when it's not the host and they're not clicking their own name, they'll see promote within the drop down menu. Once you're promoted, you go to the objects menu, saved objects, and then you have saved objects. You might have other stuff, but what we're looking for is the deck that we've built. So I'm going to grab Big Red V2 and drop it on the table. You know, be nice and move it off the table so it's not in the way, obviously. Unlock it, or open it, I mean. Drag the deck out, and it comes out in two pieces because of the way I put it in, which is really nice because I could just take the avatar off the spell book. That's easy. But you don't want the lands to be with the spells because then you have to go in and separate them one by one, and that's a huge pain. So drop them where they go, flip them over, put your avatar where it goes, and now you're ready. Just shuffle up and you can play. And if you don't know how to play, watch my other tutorial on how to play Sorcery on Tabletop Simulator. We're going to draw 1 or 2 test hands here just to show you that hopefully the deck I built will do the thing sometimes. So I'm going to draw 3 and then 4 because I am the sorcerer. So what do I see here? I see a 2-mana spell, 3-mana spell, 4-mana spell, and a 5-mana spell. That's amazing. I mean, that means every turn but the first turn I have something I can do. So that's a great spot to be. And that's why we build the deck the way we do, is so I'm not sitting here with 4 or 5-mana spells in my hand on turn 1. That would be miserable. So let's play it out a little bit. I'm going to tap, play this River Flame, and then next turn I'm going to draw a spell. I've got the 6-mana spell. Okay, so now I'm thinking I might want to start drawing lands after this. I'm going to tap. I'm going to play the Red Desert. And if they were turn 1, I'm already pinging their land, putting them to 19. Fantastic. Then I'm going to play a Burrowed Rattlesnakes here. So now I have this Burrowed Lethal guy ready to come up and block if I need to. Or later, I might bring him up and spell Spin Attack, which is already in my hand, so I can play around it. Fantastic. Untap. This turn I'm going to draw from the Atlas. Cornerstone, that's a good one. I could put something in their corner if I want. This turn, I don't. I just want to play a remote desert here. I'm going to play it wherever they put theirs so that I can ping it. So I'm putting them to 18. I have 3 mana. I don't want to spell attack yet. Or maybe I do. Maybe they have put 2 creatures here and it's good enough. I bring the rattlesnakes up. I spell attack, or a spin attack, sorry. And it does damage all around here to my enemies. And it will deal lethal, which will kill anything, no matter how big it is. And the rattlesnakes isn't technically attacking it, so it doesn't take damage back. So bam, I've just killed 2 of their creatures, 2 for 1, fantastic. Draw for turn, it's going to be another Atlas. I got to make sure I hit that 5-6 mana. It's a Vesuvius, that's a good one. Maybe they didn't expand here, maybe they did. I would either play the land here, or I'd play it here so I can get the eventual splash damage on if I need to. Now I've got 4 mana, that's pretty sweet. Let's say they've got a little guy on the field. I'm going to play the Claymore Harpies and drag it over to my Claymore Harpies and then kill it. If it's smaller than 3 power, I just kill it. So that's fantastic. A little 2 for 1, if you will. Maybe I even play it here because next turn I want to be able to swing with it and hit their site. Or if their site is here, because I'm airborne, I could still do it from here. Sweet. Next turn, I've got 5 mana spell in my hand. I'm going to have 5 mana. I think I go for a spell this turn, but it depends on what they're doing, you know. Maybe the land would be better if they're playing slow, but I want to spell this turn. It's another Claymore Harpies, that's sweet. I'm going to play a Cornerstone on their side of the board so that maybe next turn I can get my Chimera into the corner and then start pressuring them with that, which is sweet. And I'll be fighting sideways probably, so it'll have Iron Skin, which is just doubly sweet. After that, I'm going to play the other Claymore Harpies. Maybe I drag another minion in and kill it. A little bit of value. I'm going to move in and attack with the Harpies and get another 3 damage on. So, you know, I've missed a little bit probably, but we've done some damage throughout the game. This turn, I'm at 5 lands, 5 mana. I have a 6 mana spell in my hand. I know I want to draw that land, so let's do it. It's an arid desert. Perfect. Maybe they don't, you know, I don't know where their land's going to be, but maybe it's over here somewhere and I ping it. Just another damage. Then I play my 6 mana spell on the Cornerstone in their corner. And next turn I'm going to be smacking them with it, so that's sweet. I'm only at 1 spell in hand for the next turn, so I'm probably going to draw a spell. It's another Rattlesnakes. That's cool, I guess. I'm going to start moving in, and maybe I'll be able to incinerate soon. You know, next turn I draw another spell. It's another Rattlesnakes. And it's Immolation, which might just end the game, depending on where we're at. So that went pretty well, I think. That is a test hand of the brew. That's kind of showing you why I brew the way I do and why I lay the mana cost out in the way that I do, because it's really important that you're doing things in the early game, that you have the most to do in the mid game, and that you have a few really strong things to do in the late game. I hope this helps. I hope this is all you need, and if it's not, feel free to comment, ask me a few questions, stop by the Discord, ask questions there, hang out, let's play some games, and keep on slinging your spells.